We're recording. All right. So welcome. I'm Kevin Lancaster, CEO of Channel Program. Today's May 3rd, 2022. We are joined by three fantastic, phenomenal CEOs from Invarosoft, Compliancy Group, and Blumira. This segment title is It Takes a Community. And so the secrets behind vendor growth, scale, and exits. And some of the topics I think we'll cover today, we'll see where this goes, but some of the topics will be entering the channel and the path to the first 50 partners. We'll talk about communities. We'll talk about business development, product champions, channel engagement, loyalty, the idea of selling out, and maybe touch on some of the recent big M&A news that's going on in the industry. And so thanks for tuning in. What we'll do is we'll go around the room here real quick. We'll start with Mr. Marc Haskelson of Compliancy Group. Marc, give us a quick rundown of you and your background.
Okay. So Compliance Group. Hey, our role here is to simplify compliance. So hopefully this will let you guys do a little easier work with your clients. And in the end, what we found is it really helps drive the selling of your additional services. But my background was actually is in continuity and subscription billing technology. And I work primarily for one strategic investment family. They're the guys that invented payment processing. And so, yes, you guys know me in the world of Compliancy Group, but most of my career was with folks that were involved with really what is today's SaaS billing technology, or let's say SaaS billing model. We were kind of very in the early days when before that existed. Most of the folks that used that were the ad tech and the folks that you saw on the web. So I spent a lot of time in what was the world of marketing. Unfortunately, or fortunately, the end of it really had to do with what was mostly regulated markets and payment processing. So I ended up learning a ton about compliance and security and those issues around it. And that's what brought me accidentally into the space. And I'm very happy to be part of the channel.
Excellent. Welcome to the this episode. So next up we have Jim Simpson of Blumira.
Hi, Jim Simpson, CEO of Blumira. We make detection and response easy and affordable for small and medium-sized businesses. And in particular, this past year, we started focusing on the channel, which is one of the reasons why I'm excited to be here today. My personal background, I've spent my entire career working at startups. The last three have all been in cybersecurity. And in particular, the last one I worked at a company called Duo Security, where we really focused on product-led growth. And as CEO of Blumira, thinking about how can we actually extend that into the channel itself. So,
all right, great, welcome. And last but not least, we have Mr. Jamie Warner of Invarosoft.
Hi everyone, Jamie Warner, CEO of Invarosoft. We are working essentially on the future of IT support with our unified customer experience platform. So we focus on the client portal side of things, but really what it's turning into is an amalgamation of a lot of the smaller tools that you might be using out there. So VCAO, CSAT, live chat, identity security, Office 365 reporting, etc. So all being amalgamated into this unified platform. We're sort of trying to do what the PSA did for ticketing, CRM, etc. For a lot of the smaller tools that are out there. And my background, I'm actually an MSP owner as well. Probably one of the stories that is quite common out there, where MSP has a problem, builds some tech to solve the problem, and then thinks it's a great idea to go to market and help everyone else with the same technology. So certainly living and breathing the MSP world for 22 years, and now living and breathing a new world for me, which is the vendor world. So really excited to be here as well.
Good deal. So look, that's what's exciting about this group, right? You guys represent a core, maybe a foundational element of an MSP's practice moving forward, right? From engagement to cybersecurity to compliance. I mean, they're three of the most important topics to any MSP IT service provider out there today. So I'm stoked to have you guys on here. So we'll kind of jump right into it with Marc first off. So congratulations. You guys made a pretty large announcement here, which I'm sure we'll talk about here in a couple minutes. But I want to first start off by getting your perspective on what's really happening in the channel marketplace. It seems, specifically over the last 24 months that the street institutional investors, private equity, they're all starting to, clamor to get into this marketplace, both on the investing on the MSP side and the vendor side. And, we're starting to see this real acceleration of money flowing into this industry again on both sides. So give me a sense of from your perspective, having just gone through an acquisition or selling to Aldridge, give me a sense of what's going on in the industry today.
So, I mean, what I think has been happening is, let's say before security was kind of like an abstract concept, right? I think that the average consumer, the average business owner didn't really appreciate what the threat was. And I think that as the market has been evolving, not only is the average consumer understanding that, you open a bad email, this could be a very horrible thing. Okay, so now that that became the business owner, that became the larger companies that were getting targeted. As far as the investment community, what else could be better than something that is all intellectual property? SaaS-based models, right? You see the MSPs have taken on an MR or monthly recurring revenue type service model rather than the traditional break fix. That these are great things to invest in. I mean, and I can say I've done 5 startups and 2 turnarounds, right? And almost all of them had to do with this type of intellectual property SaaS play. And the market is smart, right? The private equity guys are seeing what is this great growth potential. It's not going away, right? They're beginning to basically double and triple down on everything from the technology to the service provider, right? Because I really do think, especially an MSP, I think has become the ones that are evolving are realizing that the average business has a serious problem on their hands, not just with security, but with the integration of bringing all of their platforms together, right? And that, an MSP really is this great opportunity, not just to be, a provider of IT services, but to be the consolidator, to help them integrate their technologies, to really be a part of impacting their business, right? And now that's how you go from charging, $100 to be, to charging, $300-400 per user. And I think that the investment community, and like I said, I came out of that. That's what they love, right? Mission critical, not going anywhere, monthly recurring revenue, strong, IP versus services. And look, I think we're going to continue to see it no matter what's happening with the market. I think you're going to continue to see the money pouring in.
Yeah, Jim, it'd be interesting to get your perspective on this, right? Having been CEO of 3 technology companies, you've got a fast growing technology platform, today. I guess, what are your thoughts on this space?
Yeah. So my last company, we started at the small, lower end of the market and eventually became successful to the point where larger organizations were interested in us. So a lot of times to solve security problems, the small and medium-sized businesses, not only do they not have the resources to do so, they don't necessarily have, from a capital perspective, they also don't have the people side of it either. And I don't know about any of you, but my experience in trying to hire security professionals is that there's few of them and they're very expensive. And so what I think is really compelling about this particular part of the market is that a lot of organizations can start to have better security outcomes through it. And part of that is because imagine if they have an IT person or 0 IT people, and something goes wrong, are they going to want to separate from that person, or are they really interested in working with a group of people who might already understand their IT stack and the security inherent in there, and sort of outsource that risk a bit more? And that's why I think it's really interesting, because it covers more of the market. We only improve security outcomes if everyone can have a good security outcome, and there just haven't been solutions in this part of the market, which is why it's really interesting to me and also the people who are interested in seeing my company grow. And then when talking to customers, a lot of times it comes down to they don't know they have a problem, and when they do, they're like, well, love your product, but is there a way that I can consume this through an organization that maybe has a better command of these kinds of things? And so that's where I see some really interesting dynamics right now in the space.
Absolutely. So Jamie, you probably have one of the more unique perspectives, right, of running an MSP and having this high velocity vendor platform that's focused on helping MSPs. I mean, you probably get phone calls from both sides of the play, right? About the MSP, M&A community, and then about the vendor side. I mean, so what are your thoughts about how this market has evolved, and what do you see moving forward?
It's a great question, and think about it. It's 22 years for me, and so I started the company when I was 22. So now you know how old I am. And we weren't called MSPs in 2000. We were called IT support businesses, and there was no PSA and RMM tools. I didn't even know what ticketing meant in those days. And when it came out, it took me 2 years to figure out what a ticketing system was. The first one that they quoted us was $80,000. And I'm like, you realize it's just the two of us here, and I'm like 23 years old, and you want to charge me $80,000 for a ticketing system. So lots has changed. A lot has changed. But the major thing that's changed that underlies all of this, in my personal view, is the model itself. So we started break fix. Like, I just thought that's what IT support was. But I soon realized I realized this is not going to be sustainable. So I changed the subscription model. The monthly subscription model, I didn't have any tools to back it up though, right? So, but we realized that's the key. That's what's really underpinned the whole market. That's why private equity VCs are getting involved, because essentially it's a very reliable annuity stream revenue type business when you go to that stage. And the more the market went to managed, which it wasn't, I was probably very early at doing that. I was copying the bigger guys, had no tools to back it up. But as the rest of the market started doing it, and some of the RMM tools that came out really pushed that hard for their own sake, and coached MSPs on to do this, it obviously makes sense as a great investment, because it's just grow the platform, get it bigger and bigger and bigger, and bolting MSPs together, having a platform MSP and then bolting on. You see it all around the world, mostly in North America, to be fair, but it's definitely happening in other regions, the UK, Australia, etc. And I think that's really the reason why. And it's the same with the SaaS vendors. At the end of the day, how do you grow a really large vendor? Like, what did Kaseya, what would they do? They can't, like, they either have to buy other products and then sell those products to their existing partners, or they have to buy more people. It becomes very hard to sustain the growth. And, you know, we can debate that whole thing as a separate thing, but at the end of the day, in my view, businesses need to either be going forward. If you're not going forward, you're going backwards. You might as well go forward. And so when you get to a certain size, you need to do something there. So private equity is here to stay. It'll be interesting to see how it goes as it gets really mature, though, because at some point it's going to get really, really mature in the sense of the bigger vendors. So there's only so far you can go. I mean, Kaseya can't buy another Datto, or maybe they can. Maybe there's another one. Maybe Blumira will get so large that, in fact, they'll need to bolt them on to keep it going. So, you know, it's a fascinating thing, but at the end of the day, it's just a really great business model. And I think most would attest that through the COVID period, most MSPs survived pretty solidly. Like, it wasn't, some obviously struggled, but most, it was pretty solid. And you can't say that from many other industries. And I think that's the appeal.
Yeah. No, well said. Well said. So Jim, we'll throw this next question to you. And so, you know, you guys are a great example of a company that's timed the market right. I mean, you know, be honest about it, right? Right solution, right platform, right time. You know, this is obviously evidenced by you guys just raised what, 10.3 million back in August of last year. And so, take us through that journey since then. You know, tell us about your growth and what you've done really to build a community around the organization and enable your channel partners.
Yeah, the way that I like to look at, so we're a startup company, and I like to look at them in 4 stages: founding, building, scaling, and operating. And to go from founding to building, you know, you need to have some product market fit. But then when you're in that building phase, what you're really trying to do is figure out what's your go-to-market strategy. And we know when we got our Series A funding, the big thing was like, how do we actually start to build this out? So we, you know, it's not the best product that wins, it's the best product with access to the market that wins. And so what is our strategy going to be around that? And so for all of 2022, what our decision was is, okay, well, we're going to create a freemium model so that people can try before they buy on their own terms, but we're not just going to limit it. You know, we're going to make sure that all channels can use us, particularly MSPs, right? And the thinking behind that was, well, if we do that, it actually allows MSPs to have a chance to do, a land and expand, a try before you buy. Instead of having to just add something on, they can add something on for free, have a conversation with their customers about it, and really start them off with hey, this will protect, your Microsoft 365, but it will also do these other things, and give them an opportunity to actually grow additional revenue streams for themselves while offering, a better benefit to their end customers. And saying that, is pretty easy, but actually making a detection and response solution where you can try before you buy is pretty complicated. So that was our big first goal, was get that out to market so people could start to try things out. And that includes everything from, you got to go onto a website, sign up, allow them to send their data to you, ingest that data, parse that data automatically, give them findings, and then, walk them through that. And getting that all to happen and then also align with back office systems, which I won't get into, is a pretty tricky proposition. But then the next step for us is okay, now we've got that out there. We've got this solid way to start bringing this solution and driving some awareness of it. How do we start to dial in on specific things that the market needs? And so a couple of the things you were mentioning earlier, PSAs, RMMs, what can we do to actually make it easier for MSPs to deploy and use this? Making sure that, we're focusing on the products that they're already using in their tech stack. So it's just easy for them to bring our product in and integrate it. And it may not necessarily sound sexy, but, I think that the innovation really is about trying to find a way to take something like this and bring it to this market and make it easy both for us to service the market, but also for the market to consume it, give us feedback, and help us evolve the product so that it can improve quickly over time.
So Jamie, if you could kind of maybe jump in on that. I mean, we'll get to kind of your platform in a second, but you guys have seen a lot of growth, and so what are you doing these days to really build community? Because that seems like what the industry is all about right now is building community and really investing in enablement.
Oh, absolutely is. And it has been a little bit of a learning curve for me, to be fair, because I was somewhat, I don't know if it's a deliberate thing, but I was quite isolated as an MSP. I wasn't because we weren't using some of the tools that weren't in Australia in terms of PSA RMM, I wasn't in a lot of the community. So the Invarosoft experience has enabled me, despite being an MSP owner, to actually learn more about the community that I've been a part of my entire working and commercial career. And it's a fascinating beast, and it's definitely emanated out of North America, and you see it now around the rest of the world, whereby it's amazing how much MSPs love to be together, learn together in certain communities. So you've obviously got coaching organizations, you've got the larger vendors themselves that create communities. But you probably would never see such a supportive community in your life. Everybody is keen to help each other out, provide advice at, even to direct competitors. They're just, I learned this, I learned that, whether it be sales or marketing, whether it be operational, whatever it happens to be. So it's fascinating. So as a vendor, being able to tap into certain communities is obviously a great strategy for leverage. But I think you've got to spend the time in those communities. You've got to nurture them. You've got to actually add value. I mean, I'm lucky that I can add a few points of growing a reasonable size SMB MSP. We're at 50 staff, so I've learned a lot over those 22 years, and we can bring that to the table. But being able to engage, provide value, insights that they ordinarily wouldn't get is important. And at the end of the day, with products out there, and you'll see this everywhere, you'll see it with Channel Program and all the vendors speaking throughout the series, is people buy from people, and people buy based on recommendations from their colleagues. And so bearing in mind the MSP industry is so tight-knit, you've seen how the community, there's so many platforms and forums for them all to talk to each other as well, which can have positive and negative things depending on what they're talking about, of course. Sure. That's kind of how it works. And so it's been a bit of a learning curve for me to navigate all of that, and we're still finding our feet. We are still a startup in that sense, and but the better we got in engaging certain communities and the time that was spent in there, we've yielded the result. But it's also cannot be underestimated how much product and evolving products. So for those that don't know, our category is actually quite new. It's new. It was evolving. There's only just been players coming out. So you're educating and selling at the same time, which is infinitely harder. And so that's just, that whole journey has been quite fascinating. But at the heart of it is product. So if you can't come to market with a product that everybody knows and it's just another version of it, then the evolving nature of that product development, it's interesting that engagement goes up as relevance of products or things that you build start to really match what was referred to earlier, which is that whole product market fit thing. So community is huge in the MSP space. It's absolutely huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and taking a kind of step back, I'll throw this, to you, to Marc. I guess this goes back maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I remember being at some of the industry events, the ASCIIs, the Robin Robbins, and let's say this booth to the right of us or to the left of us, and I'd wander over and figure out, what do these guys do? And you guys were, you in particular were just ridiculously gracious and just collaborative and just inviting, as we were a new vendor, ID agent at the time, new vendor. So to your point, Jamie, that this industry is ridiculously collaborative, not just from the MSP standpoint, but the vendors themselves. There's a lot of co-opetition. There's a lot of just, intense, fierce competition, but it's been fascinating to see the level of collaboration. And so kind of jumping on some of the stuff that Jamie mentioned. So Marc, I guess, what are you guys doing these days? The building community and enablement, or is it just more acceleration of all the awesome stuff you guys were doing previously?
So we've always believed in the collaboration approach, because, and I will say, the channel is a little unique in that you're right. There are most of the markets, because we're in both direct and channel, and it's rare that you see communities that are so open to help each other. For us, we've always believed really strongly that the vendors should be working together. One of the ones that we've talked about many times is, look, if we're doing business with the same decision makers and we're not competitive, why shouldn't we be collaborating, right? Not that I think there are a lot of organizations that run really great shows, but the economics of some of these shows, especially in the channel, are prohibitive.
Yeah.
Right. So it's really, often, scenarios like this where we can sit down and say, hey, what are you grappling with? Let me share. So different things that we've done. So we can, during COVID, we really embraced that the issue was not more, let's say, vendor opportunity, but really to keep the communities engaged. So we participated in a couple of different things where we were driving cross country with other vendors and meeting MSPs parking lots and really talking about, what were there, how they were grappling with this crazy thing going on. I continue to believe that there's also lots of opportunities for us to collaborate in more, whatever term you want to use for it, but call it a simple lunch and learn, right? Hey, if we're all going to be in Chicago, why don't you get a couple of your customers, we'll get a couple of our customers, let's get them in a room, make some introductions, because what I found happens, and this is, like I said, I've been at this a long time, both in the channel and outside the channel. If we, 80-20 rule, right? And if we take the time to introduce each other to our best clients, assuming we're all, good organizations that are going to do the right thing for our clients, right? Which I'm confident about. Getting together and doing that type of sharing just helps us all. It serves our clients better. It serves our clients' clients better. I also really bought into CompTIA, and I've been working with a lot of the vendors of us. We actually, my first involvement with CompTIA was we set up what was called the Business Application Advisory Council, which is a council just for vendors, right? And it's just there so that, that here's this really powerful organization that wants to help us. Yeah. Right. There's all sorts of research and information that they have available to us, and how to better serve what is the MSP community. And we're constantly looking on our side. We see also that really the focus that we've chosen is really to be looking at how we can help an MSP better serve its clients, therefore drive up its revenue. right? And a lot of what we and I've seen, we encourage this with if you think about it, separate of just solving the problem, can you help the MSPs truly serve what is their customers need? Because a lot of times the MSPs we find are not particularly advanced in sales techniques, right? So that they tend to be too, they get too techie. The business owner's like, look, this is just confusing and overwhelming. Therefore, it sounds like I'm going to be charged too much money and I'm not happy, right? Versus you have a business problem. We're going to provide the technology that solves that. You don't need to understand the depth of that technology. And actually, if you've heard Paul Redding, one of our people, speak, he does this teaching them how to fish kind of thing. Yeah. Like he's really trying to help them understand how to dialogue with an end customer differently. So those are a lot of the initiatives we've been investing into. We're just kind of continuing what we're doing, but we've definitely been beefing up the quantity, the level that we've been doing that at. That's one of the advantages of the investment we took in, was so that we weren't bootstrapped, right? Because for you, the times you met me in the past, we were a true bootstrap firm. We had no lot of credit. Everything had to be done on basically how much is room on my credit card this week. Let me go to another trade show. So we better sell something here, or else won't be able to put the lights on Monday. But
well, you projected the utmost confidence at those shows, so you would never have known. But I can certainly relate to the maxing out the credit cards to get this damn thing off the ground. So well done there. And I think you actually segue extremely well to the next question that I had for Jamie, because their platform, Invarosoft's platform, has been kind of described as the ultimate engagement platform, right, between the MSP and their customers. So you mentioned it earlier, right, Jamie? You've run a mega successful MSP. You got this fast growing vendor. So what's the secret sauce to engagement, right? I mean, you've built a platform around engagement, and fluidity and process improvement. Like, what's the big secret? What do we all need to know?
Well, I think the big secret is that just think of your own MSP and ask yourself the question: are you delivering a Nokia analog approach, or are you delivering sort of an iPhone modern approach in that sense? And the crazy thing, the thing that drives me a little mental in the market, which is what we wanted to do all those years ago in building something here, is just the way we engage with customers in general. There's only a few ways that an MSP actually engages. Think about it. It's I go out and meet them to sell them stuff, get the relationship in the first place. You then have engineers that go out and do audits. You then may come back and talk to them about their environment. But then on a day-to-day basis, after those initial engagements, it's very much around a voice on the other end of the phone, a lot of email ticketing. So it's not a very modern experience in that sense. And it's essentially just phone and email. Those are the two ways in which MSPs engage. So if you think about engagement at what it really is at the moment at scale, and then you think about how other modern businesses engage. So obviously your consumer brands and how they have their whole customer experience. It could be hotels. It could be going into supermarkets now in the way that they do it. A lot of businesses are putting a huge amount of effort and time into customer experience. And unfortunately, the MSPs have been quite laggards at that. Now, I don't know, a secret, I'm not actually that technical as an MSP owner. I don't know how to do much, but I can talk about it. And so I was always probably a good reflection of who the customer was. So naturally, I always went, well, this just seems a bit old fashioned. Let's do something here. And I thought that's where a lot of MSPs would think. So, we've worked out at the start when we first started that MSPs just don't think that way. They think that delivering an excellent customer experience is essentially doing their job. Well, times have changed. The iPhone going away from Nokia and the way we interact with technology in general has changed. It has moved on. So that's kind of where we're trying to work on, is that future engagement. So whether it be through client portals or whether it be through just better technology around identity, security, push notifications when there's outages, and just better visibility over things like VCIO information, whatever it happens to be, there's so much that kind of relates to customer experience. And that's only one component. The technical side that we work on, like the software side, is just one component, of course. There's other aspects of it. But I think that's where there's going to be a lot more money spent in different facets of engagement. And you're seeing it with a lot of startup vendors at the moment. but it's going to get more and more, because I'll leave you with this thought. At the end of the day, an MSP is essentially a customer service business in technology. We are not technology businesses. Vendors are technology businesses that build technology, but MSPs are customer service businesses. So if you are a customer service business, it would stand to reason that you spend a lot of time making sure your customer experience is modern and reflective of where we are in other industries. So it's a fascinating space, and we'll keep working on that to make it better. I mean, look at another point on this. Look at electric.ai. Electric.ai. I don't know if you guys all know them. They have now raised $200 million to essentially build a modern MSP. They're now a unicorn. It's a huge TAM, but they're just a modern MSP. That's it. Now, a lot of MSPs listening to me say this will be thinking to themselves, oh yeah, but their service delivery, it's just so impersonal. And so whatever. The point is that they're going to market saying to customers, your customers or your prospect customers. So you might not have churn to them, but you might not win deals because of them. So it reduces your sales awesomeness, because they're saying to market, hey, all these other, and they're blatantly saying this, by the way, all these MSPs are doing it the old way. We do it the new way. Mm-hmm. We do it the new way by this, and this through automation, and we make sure it all works and whatever, right? Yes, there's a bit of marketing spin, and they are backing it up with the tech. That's where the market's going. So we're trying to help MSPs over time do the same sort of tech that an electric's doing, but doing it for you, so you don't have to spend or raise money to try and build that stuff. So fascinating space.
Absolutely. And I think one thing we didn't touch on, and this might be another episode, but I think one of the more interesting things about especially Jim, your organization, and Marc as well, is that the people that make up your organization are pretty stellar, pretty fantastic. I'm thinking of Jeremy, with Blumira, and then certainly Paul, being the face out there with you alongside you, Marc, over the years. I mean, there's enablement, and there's having the right product, but then there's also having the right people. And so that's certainly you guys have certainly done a great job in the people category. And I know this could be another topic for another day, but so I guess the last question, and we'll start with you, Jim, right? So you're building this high velocity, very valuable, very timely, just kick butt organization. What's next? What's the balance of 2022? What's 2023 see for Blumira, and where you guys are going next?
Yeah, I enjoy this question a lot, because when you're a startup, sometimes, you have to have like these two ideas, what's happening in the next 6 months, and then what's happening like 5 years from now. And those things can be really challenging to navigate, because they're just very different event horizons, and the same set of people who are running the company have to do both of them. So, for us, the remainder of 2022 is really focusing on building what I'd say a really solid, stable platform that our customers and their customers can embrace and extend. That's like the most important thing. And our customers will lead us where we need to go next. Now, that isn't to say we don't have our own ideas, but where I find it to be really interesting is like, if you look at really large organizations, you start getting into like market segmentation and categories and what have you. And so, when a large organization looks at me, they're like, what exactly are you? What I think is interesting when you're in the SMB and mid-market space, you're really focusing on like the jobs to be done. And so I could talk about how today we're a cloud SIM, and tomorrow we'll probably do more SOAR stuff, or maybe we'll branch out into XDR. Maybe there's like some vulnerability management things that we want to do. But the important part really for us is to figure out, how can we actually build on the promise of what we're doing right now? So when you use our product today, and I'm not trying to go into a pitch here, but a lot of the challenge that IT practitioners have when it comes to security is like, once there's a security issue, now what, right? It's like having a fire alarm with a lot of, vendors that are in the space, but it's like nobody tells you how to put out the fire. Right. And so for us, we focus on like, okay, well, here's, what you can do. And like the first step is we'll automate a response. But right now we don't have as many integrations for that. there's a whole opportunity for us to go after that with our product roadmap and build out more of those, because there's a number of different kinds of solutions in the space for that. And that helps us with, if you wanted to talk about the source space. But after that, for us, it turns into, okay, well, you don't have a way to automate it. We'll step our customers line by line. Like, here's a playbook for what you need to do to solve this problem. And we have a spate of integrations we have right now to ingest data from, look into, detect, and provide those playbooks on. But as we talk to customers, more and more of them, as we grow, we find that there's all sorts of stuff. This is not a shock to anybody in this room. Lots and lots. I mean, you look at these space, and there's just so many different kinds of products that you have to pull data in from. And so again, narrowing on where can we actually provide the most for the customers that we have today while building for the customers tomorrow. And then I'd say for the other thing to focus on is that people aspect. When we are working with MSPs, while they might be customers of ours, they're also extensions of the company in a way, right? And so we have to figure out how can we help them with enablement from a sales perspective, a marketing perspective, but also a customer experience perspective. Because if we just throw our solution over the wall and say, okay, good luck everyone, that's actually probably not going to be the greatest outcome for us. So it's also making sure that people inside the company have empathy for that and can think about, oh, okay, well, when I'm building this thing or when we're doing the enablement for this thing, we need to make sure that we have a lens on it. And believe me, Jeremy is a great advocate for MSPs, never lets us forget it, but it's still really critical for us to be focusing on those kinds of things. Where we go next, I can tell you long-term, today we focus on detection of breach, but if you think about, what we have access to, the kind of data that we look at, detection of breach is pretty cool. If you can detect a breach and if you can have, a finding versus hundreds of alerts or thousands of alerts, but what if you could just prevent it, And so I think the next step for us is how do we figure out how to posture our customers' environments and then provide them with some ways to actually lock things down based on the things that we're ingesting and that they care about. And then taking that to another level, giving them compliance reports in terms of well, how might you actually meet this set of compliance things with the things that you have in your environment today? But none of this is trivial, as you all know, right? We can talk about it all we want, but getting there, it's a question of buy or build or partner. But the more that we can do to drive better security outcomes in a space that typically doesn't have access to it is what we're going to be focusing on for the next couple of years here.
That's awesome. So let me throw that over to Jamie, and then we'll end on Marc. So Jamie, what's the balance of this year, and what's 2023 look like for you and your partners?
Well, it's super exciting. I mean, it's been a bit of a journey to figure out our roadmap and our platform in that sense, and that's why I started off today talking about a unified customer experience platform, and that's where it's going. Where we started out with customer engagement and customer experience at the start, it's now becoming a unified thing. The market has asked to get a lot of the smaller tools that are out there, the less complicated ones, and putting it inside these platforms. And there's definitely a correlation between what those tools are and what we're trying to do with the overall engagement piece. And so we're now actually crystal clear on what we need to do in terms of adding more of these smaller platforms to our ecosystem. What that will mean is that essentially we'll have a platform that will enable MSPs to reduce stack costs and stack complexity. We actually did a survey on this at the start of the year and found that I was quite shocked by the response. That we said, look, what tools do you use? And if you could get most or all of these at the same quality, has to be the same quality, if not better, than the point solutions, would you consolidate? And 94.4 said, yes, we would. I was quite surprised by that. I thought it wouldn't be that high. But then we asked a qualitative question, which is why? Why would you want that stack consolidation? And cost is probably the obvious one, but it actually was more around complexity. When you have a lot of tools, if it's not abundantly clear, 80% of MSPs are 3 million below and 60% are 1 million below. That means we're talking about businesses with 5 to 15, 20 staff on average, right? So no one's got time to do anything. So when you've got lots of vendors to manage, especially smaller tools, lots of portals to be trained in, lots of invoicing, all that sort of stuff. So it's just complex. So that was actually the main theme of the feedback was, I just want to reduce the complexity. It's just too much to train everybody on. So it's quite interesting. So we're really leaning hard into that, and we'll be looking at investment in the business to help us achieve that. And it's quite exciting because as we've added more functionality in these areas and tied it all together nicely, we've seen that engagement of our own partners just increase and increase and increase. So the future looks good for us, but it looks good for the MSPs too, to just try and simplify the whole thing and add a lot more value there from that perspective. So, yeah.
That's awesome. So we'll end on Marc. I know you guys have a bright future ahead of you. So give us the balance of the year in 2023. What can we expect?
All right. So I think to echo a lot of the great things that the gentlemen on this call are sharing, we are continuing to invest very heavily in providing better tools for the MSP, because what we found is that often compliance can be the justification of the advanced security stacks. In other words, they don't have to explain them. They can just turn around and say, look, the law says I have to do this, and blame it all on compliance group. So we've been spending a lot of time helping, giving them dedicated marketing portals and tools for them to be able to do that easier. But really, a lot of it had to do, and this is now that we've gone from bootstrapped to finally having, let's say, some real financial resources. We've always felt that we could help both the MSP and their end clients with the automation of compliance, right? So that we've been investing a lot of what we're focusing on is not just increased functionality within our platform to address and one of the things we're talking about, if you look at the overlap in let's say the MSP community of the clients they serve, the SMB is obviously a broad spectrum, right? But one of the things that we've really seen is that so the small organization, let's say sub 50, okay, versus the mid-market enterprise and the complexity they're looking for, they're big enough that they really need the advanced services of an MSP, requires the MSP to be a little more sophisticated about how they work with them. But that, giving them, providing better tools to do that is a common goal. So we really think that we can automate this, right? So a lot of this has to do with, adding what is not just feature and functionality, but frameworks. Right, so CMMC, depending on what what you want to do, if you're looking at the different frameworks, CIS versus NIST CSF, PCI, 42 CFR, what's going on in Canada, FIPA, PIPEDA, we're looking at that. The MSPs can use us to basically, and Jamie, I think you did a kind of a good example of it, right? The complexity of them trying to keep up with this is an unfair burden on that size organization. Right. And one of the things we found, and although we're in the business of compliance, we found that a lot of our time is really helping the MSP learn. When I say I don't want to say learn how to sell, because they're smart people, right? But giving them tools that allow that they don't have to sell, right? You shouldn't have to. Your client trusts you. You should be able to understand their business problem and explain how you solve the business problem, rather than trying to explain the complexity of the technology you're using to solve the business problem, right? So on our side, the other things we've been doing is because we are both a direct and channel play, we've been investing a lot of resources in building out dedicated channel resources, right? So that so we could provide more value, more flexibility at a higher, let's say at a faster rate than what we could in the past. And the rest of it is just, look, if you really think of what's going on, right? Compliance and security are so interrelated, right? There's a tremendous opportunity, I think you've been around when I've said, look, I don't care what specialty you pick, but pick something to specialize, right? Get yourself some leverage going. So we really want to continue helping one of the organizations see those leverages and what would be the benefits of higher value, therefore higher price and higher profitability. Yeah, I still, there's nothing that makes me happier when I speak to a client that says, hey, look, you doubled my revenue and tripled my profit, right? And it's not that they cared, they didn't give a hoot about what was my technology, What they cared about is it made them stickier and more valuable to their end customer. And I really, and look, I think it takes a community, by the way, because I don't think we do that in isolation. That has to do with building, justifying the security stacks so that, that we're all benefiting from this. And ultimately it's the MSP providing better value to their end client. And, they're to your point, the majority of them are not that big. And unfortunately, no matter what they do, it's really hard to be at scale and justify the type of resources that many of us have within our infrastructure. When you're 5-10 people serving that $1 to $3 million MSP. Right? So those are the things that we've been trying to ask our clients what they need, what the MSPs need more of, and putting it together to give it for them.
Oh, awesome. So look, I think this is what was great about bringing the three of you together, that you're coming at solving the challenges from three different perspectives, but these are three probably the most important areas of an MSP's business, right? I mean, it doesn't get more important than security, compliance, and engagement and enablement. And so I knew this would be a pretty fascinating conversation because of the overlap and because of what you guys are dedicated to the channel. So with that, we'll wrap up this conversation. But I really want to thank all three of you. I mean, Marc, Jim, Jamie, just thank you for jumping on, and encourage everybody listening, watching this episode to check out their sites, check out their solutions, both on channelprogram.com, but then their individual sites, and we'll have links to their websites and the show notes. But I want to again thank you guys for jumping on with us here for episode number 2. And look forward to seeing, hopefully, you guys in person at some point in the near future.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, thank
Awesome.
you. You're welcome.
Cool.